Welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Isn't Rise podcast. On this episode, I have Elle from Polercise. Elle was one of the first people to do pole in Ireland and had opened up about 7 studios and trained people from all over the country. She's competed in different events, different sports, and has travelled the world either competing or judging. And even last year, around about October, she got me up to compare the World Championships of pole dancing in Belfast. So what she's done is for the industry has been incredible. And just in this episode, we talk about how she got there, and we go on a few different journeys about challenges that she's set for herself to compete in, challenges that she's just set in general, like climbing a mountain every day for 30 days, and what she thinks she brings to her students whenever her students work with her. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to reach out to any of us, we're both approachable, so feel free to do that. And thanks again. I'll speak to you again soon. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Isn't Rise podcast. Today I am here with Elle from Polercise. Elle is a polling queen and judge and many other things that we will get into later. But Elle, do you want to give a brief 10-15 second description for people who don't know who you are?
Okay, so for those who don't know me, as Liam introduced, my name is Elle Fagan, which is short for Eleanor. I am a 40-year-old baby lady to Seamus and Mary Fagan, and I was brought up and still live in Hilltown, which is a wee village in the foot of the Mourns. I am the youngest child of 4, 2 brothers and 1 sister. I had a pretty good childhood growing up. Eventually went on to university in Preston, where I studied fire safety. And after that, I took myself off to Australia with my then boyfriend at the time. And I worked there as it was a working sort of holiday as a traffic controller. So one day on my lunch break, I was reading a magazine and I came across an article about pole dancing as a form of fitness, and I just was intrigued with this. I was kind of always into sport at school. I played a bit of camogie in my day, and I always just loved PE day. I think that was my favourite subject at school, and I wished every PE class that they were taking the ropes out to the climbing and the climbing bars. So the thought of a pole dance class was just right on my street, and it really excited me. So I made the phone call, went the following week. Didn't tell anyone I was going. I don't even think I told my boyfriend at the time where I was going to. So I snuck off to it and absolutely fell in love with pole. And the rest is kind of history, really. I had already started my business plan before I left Australia because I knew there was nowhere for me to pole whenever I got home. And yeah, so that's kind of where I am with that. I opened my first studio in Belfast in 2005, October 2005. So we're a big 15 years old this next month. And I know 15 years ago, and I had about 5 or 6 studios at one point all across the north and the south of Ireland. And about 5 to 7 years ago, I like to say I went into semi-retirement and I gave up most of them. And I now work between the Belfast and Dundalk studios. And in around the same time, I got into Airbnb hosting. So obviously with living in a beautiful part of the Mourns, that was a great wee side earner for me as well. So I got into that about 7 years ago. And yeah, that has took me up to where we are in this present day. And that's who I am.
Brilliant. I love your story and the evolution of your story. One of the things, I didn't know you went to Preston. Preston, did you say?
Yes, Preston, yeah, over in Central
I knew you were slightly posh because you're called Eleanor, but you went to Preston as well, so nobody would have known you were this posh. One of the things I love about your story is whenever I talk about how I got into martial arts, people always say, well, what was it that triggered it? And I say, I found a magazine, I read the magazine, and that's what did it. And they'd be like, that would never happen. And I'm like, I know people that have done exactly the same. I just love that you told that part of your story, that that's all it takes, just one wee thing for you to go, I'm going to try that.
It just changed the whole path of my life. Yeah. That one thing. Madness.
I was going to think that the only connection between what you were going to do, which was fire safety, and what you do is the pole. That's literally it. So you get that in somewhere.
Secret obsession with poles.
You also judge and have competed. So pole is basically taking you all around the world, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, as I say, over the 15 years, definitely in the first 10 years, I have slowed down quite a lot. But when I was running all studios, I was constantly on the go. I look back now and I don't know how I did it, but I was running from one studio to the next, running events, dancing in events. I was took workshops in Australia. I judged in Argentina. Most recently, I judged in China. So yeah, I've been very blessed that it has took me all over the world, and I've met lots of wonderful people through it too.
Like myself. That's
Like
that's how we
yourself, when did we first meet anyway? Was
we,
it?
we met at my first ever competition. Remember, I was training under Grania, and
Yes.
I went to a class on Thursday with Grania, and on Sunday she brought me up to the All Irelands. And we're like, "This is Liam. How long have you been doing pole?" I'm like
And you
6 hours.
totally winged it. Try
Yeah,
not to.
I remember Grania shouting from the sideline names of moves, and me looking at her going, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking. I don't know what you're talking about. Why do you keep shouting
I
chopper at
still,
me? I don't know what that means."
I still get confused about the names of moves.
Well, I'd only started, so I only knew about four. But it was the community, like how welcoming you were for me, who was like, I don't think people get how little of a clue I had about any. Like, I didn't know anything about pole dancing. I didn't even. You're bound to get it where a lot of people just misinterpret pole dancing as to do with stripping or things like that, especially in the country we grew up in. But I didn't even have that. I had literally been in a class once and was like, here I am surrounded by all these people doing madness, and I'm like wearing a pair of shorts, looking like I'm going to the beach. Didn't even shave or tan or anything. Whoa, can I have a go on that? So that's what
I
kept me
think
involved.
because you were a man. Hmm?
Go on ahead.
I think too because you were a man, and then it was dominated by females, and I think just everybody loved to see a guy in the class, and really, really encouraged that.
Yeah, I think there was five of us that competed that time. I actually
Yeah,
came third to the.
yeah,
I remember. I can't remember the name of the judge. One of the judges came to me after, and she was like, if you had just done two or three more moves, you would have won that. And I was like, I don't know any more moves. I did all the moves I know, and that was the end of it.
that's
Uh,
all I have.
that's all. That got
Yeah,
me through the next few competitions too. Those five or
yeah.
six moves.
And then you end up hosting our competitions.
That was September, wasn't it?
Last September, October actually, yeah, last
It's nearly a
October.
year. It's nearly a year ago now.
Mhm.
That was the
My
Worlds as
news
well.
feed, my memories news feed is full of the All Ireland's memories this past like week or two. So I'm feeling a wee bit, got it that it's not happening this year, but hey ho,
That's
everyone just
your baby, isn't it? You created the All
Yes,
Ireland's.
the All Ireland Pole Dance Championships, yeah. And then the goal was to host the Worlds. That kind of had that goal in my head about 5 years ago, and made that happen then last year as well with Kay Penny in the team. So
Yeah,
that was good.
and I
Yeah.
got to be a part of that. Which, again, that's what I sort of wanted to touch on is the community again. Like because you were so inviting when I did the competition. I'm not very competitive or anything, but when I did that and you were so inviting and everybody was so nice, I was like, even if I am shit at this, this is something I want to be a part of because I love surrounding myself with people that are goal driven and like want to help people, and that's what I got from that. So even to go from just being some guy that showed up 2 days later to standing at like comparing for the worlds was for
Yeah.
me a great experience. So how is
So
how
many years later.
how did you create that? So from
I don't
just
know.
starting
I find
pole.
that I think it's just you know, it's it is a real great community, and I think it's because the studios are small and it's personal, and if you go into a big commercial gym, you're in a spin class with maybe up to 50 people in it, and you get lost, you're like a small fish. But when you come to the studio, we have a maximum of 10 people in the class, and it is very personal, and the girl and the guys really do form great relationships and friendships that do last forever. That that I witnessed over the years. So I think probably that's a lot to do, but you would find that in different sort of disciplines like yoga and things. People do sort of tend to, come together and, they'll go for a coffee afterwards or whatever. So I think maybe that has a lot to do with it as well. And, we're a different type of breed. I think people that come to pole classes as well,
Yeah.
We're a wee bit ballsy and adventurous and, that sort of person, and we all just stick together.
I think the crack, like it's an Irish saying, but there's a lot of crack within the classes. Like there's no serious. That's not serious. Like that's what I loved about it. You're surrounded by world champions and world competitors and judges, but we would still have a bit of crack and like mess up. Like for example, on the Worlds, you came on and were a glamorous assistant for me doing a magic trick at the Worlds. So, like, yeah, am I doing it?
No idea.
And you would notice that whenever you follow you on social media, you see all the classes and the marketing stuff that has to be done. But then, like, I watch most of it just for the shit that you get up to in the classes, or the banter between all of the students. So you can really see that the students aren't coming in and thinking, right, I'm going to go do my pole class and then I'm going to go home. They're coming in to hang out with their friends. They're learning some stuff. They're like, you're taking people from no confidence to standing in front of a stage. So
yeah.
Have you a way of that you think that's because of the crack and the connection? Is that like a goal of yours to get people like out of themselves? So when they come in all timid and shy, and then
I don't know what it is about pole that does that. Even for me myself, if you had said to me, like when did I start pole? I've been doing it. We opened in 2005. I did it 2 years before that. So if you had said to me in 2002, you're going to be standing up next year or in 2 years' time in a class full of 12 girls, sometimes even more whenever we're doing hen party and teaching the pole, I would have went, not a chance, no, because I was kind of shy. I feel doing school plays and things like that, put myself out there. So, but when I went along to pole, it was something that I was kind of good at. I found it easy. Not everybody does find it easy, but I found it easy and I was good at it. And that made me feel good about myself, and then made me feel confident in myself. So I think that's kind of where how people's confidence grow when they come to pole, and they're able to do something like even something simple as a spin or maybe a headstand, something that they thought they could never do before, and they achieve that. But then that just sort of plants the seed, and they just start to grow and grow, and get stronger, and
you sort of have like, because of the moves in pole, you have stepping stones where you're like, look, you'll get this and then that. And I know personally, like, even just a Superman, I know how many people hated trying to learn a Superman, and they're like, this isn't going to happen. And then whenever they get it, you can see the delight. Like, I think when I learned Superman, I did it once and was like, got it, never did that again. That was horrible. It's not for me. But the fact that you can get all these stepping stones up, and that's why I love being around the community. You just see people growing, because as you know, I do a lot of.
Everybody cheers for you in pole,
Yeah. Even like
Superman, my biggest bruise. The biggest bruise I ever got was from a Superman. Literally was the size of my hand, because no one really taught me. I was kind of self-taught in the early days, because obviously there was nowhere for me to pole. I had to go back and forth to England. So I was kind of trying to learn off YouTube. Didn't really know the techniques of Superman, and literally just flung myself, turned myself around and flung myself back into it. Yeah, give me the biggest bruise. But I learned how to teach it right.
Learned not to do that. But you're sort of the same as me as well. When I started doing the martial arts, YouTube wasn't as big, so there was bits and pieces that you could pick up. So you end up learning the hard way by trying, and you try. So now whenever you teach, it's probably what makes you such a good teacher, is you've went through the journey, the real awkward hard way, that you can go to them like, trust me, I know that if you do this, this, and this, it'll work. If you do what you want to do, it's going to be bad for you. How has pole then just like filtered into the rest of your life? So you went from living in Australia to come home being a pole instructor. Do you think that confidence travels further than just the pole class and community? Do you think it like?
Um, yeah, well, there was a few years with the guy that I was seeing at the time. He set up a gym, and I kind of helped him to set it up, not financially, but I put a lot of time into it. So I did practice other disciplines like kettlebells, Pilates, spinning classes, so I did a lot of that for a good few years. And kind of, I would probably admit that my own business sort of fell to the wayside maybe for those few years because I was just taking on too much. But I also fell into competing in bodybuilding as well. So,
Fell into it.
falling into the pole world has opened up a lot of different avenues too. So, and give me the confidence to probably stand up on stage in a thong and a bra in front of hundreds of people.
Flexing. But at least you got the flex when you were there. That's the main thing.
Oh, they'll
Don't
got it. They'll got it.
that's why I wore a jumper so they wouldn't look as small compared to yours.
You don't want to listen, yeah.
So it's funny the way you put it is like you fell into these things and you just tried these things, but everything that you've fallen into and tried is incredibly hard and takes a lot of discipline. Like to get on stage, for anyone that doesn't know, you didn't just go on stage in a bra and a thong and stand like you had to cut weight and like you were a bodybuilder, like you're standing on stage like a magazine picture. How did it feel doing that?
Well, I did fall into it. So I started competing probably from 2014 to about 2016. And literally a man called Martin Spence, he runs NIFMA. So in like pole, there's lots of different federations. So NIFMA would kind of be a good sort of stepping stone for people that want to get into bodybuilding. So he came into the pole studio one day to promote his competition. And he looked at me and he said, Elle, you're in great shape. Obviously because pole keeps you in great shape. You should go in for it and you have a chance to show people what pole is all about. So he had 3 rounds, the formal round, which I like the idea of too, getting all dolled up and glammed up. And he had the bikini round and the sports round. And really, I just wanted to enter that competition to show people what pole was. Yeah. So, and it was a good enough island. It was maybe 2 weeks away, and I thought to myself, 2 weeks to sort of maybe lose a few pounds, and that was it. And I entered the competition, and I think I came first in the formal round, first in bikini, and maybe second in the sports or something like that. So I thought to myself, this is all right. I'm kind of winning things here. So that kind of got me then into wanting to compete again and win the whole thing. And the following year, which I did, and then it got me into maybe going for the bigger federation. And I entered UKBFF, I think it was called at the time. But then I got a little bit more serious about it. Genetically, I am blessed. I literally have to look at a weight and I will put on muscle mass. So nice. For me, it was the diet. For me, it was the diet and was the hard part. So I kind of then was still sort of, doing my own diet. And I dieted for maybe 10 weeks, then did a little bit of weight training. That would be the only weight training I did for UKBFF, and I won it as well. So then the next step up was NABA, it was the big one. Again, I did my own diet and training for it. The boyfriend at the time had his gym, so I did maybe 12 weeks again in it because I wanted to enter the bikini round. I never really wanted to get into the real muscly round. So entered it, came second that year, and I actually should have won. Now I'm not competitive, but I know I should have won. So that made me want to go back the following year and win it. But that year I did get proper guidance, nutrition guidance from a guy called Phil Graham, and I won it that year. But yes, a lot of discipline for me. Bodybuilding probably was the biggest challenge that I've done to date, mentally anyway, because I do like my sweets. Can I just show you here? I don't have a wee cup of tea waiting on you, and I'm with like 3 chocolate bars here. I live with junk food, so the social life, there's a lot of sacrifices in bodybuilding. You have no social life. Well, I don't anyway, because my, I don't have great discipline when it comes to that sort of stuff. So I find myself going to birthday parties and literally tormenting myself that I could have a bit of cake or, you know, whatever. You're counting calories all the time. You're maybe, you know, restricting and possibly sometimes overloading and certain nutrients and that. So for me, it kind of wasn't an ideal sport to be in. Probably the toughest one, as I said.
Yeah.
You know, toughest challenge I've done. Getting up on stage was the easy bit for me, but standing in the bikini, because with the pole and with performing and doing pole shows over the years, I had that wee bit of stage confidence and stage presence. I knew how to walk in a pair of high heels and things like that. But
Which is important. Walking in high heels is important for the bikini round, otherwise.
It is in pole and it is in bodybuilding. If you don't want to be walking like a man in heels, that's for sure, across the stage when you're being judged. But yeah, so yeah, yeah.
So that all of that again, I find whenever I challenge myself with ridiculous things, once I start to work with my students and clients, whatever they're going through, you can sort of you can understand a wee bit where they're coming from, because you've done, like, when people don't like the calorie count or calorie control, and you're like, well, you did 12 weeks of like the most ridiculous version, so it's easier for you to find the balance and really connect. So that would be why I would imagine my clients and students get such good results whenever I work with them, because I've been there, I understand what they're doing, and especially when it comes to challenges. And since you brought up challenges, you do a lot of different, like you've just finished 30 days in a row walking up. Is it the highest peak in Ireland, that mountain that you did?
In Ireland, yeah, Carrauntoohil, yeah.
So you did 30 days.
Hey?
You did 30 days in a row, though, like
30 days in a row, yeah. It was COVID, you see, it just sort of drove me a wee bit mad and restless, and I was like, right, what am I going to do with myself? So let's climb up the highest mountain in Ireland 30 days in a row. Yeah, sounds like a good plan, you know?
I imagine it was one day you were sitting in the garden and it was lovely and sunny, and you thought, I'd love to be up a mountain. I'll do that. And then forgot that Ireland doesn't really have that weather. And then, like, I remember, like, I followed the journey, not literally, like I didn't walk the mountain, but I followed you on social media. And I just remember thinking, oh, that's about 10 days now. She's just been soaked, saying, I'm at the top. You're like, was there a lot of, obviously there was a lot of rain in that, but what was it that just keeps you going through these things? Like, whenever you set a challenge?
July in Ireland, like, the sun only shines on the 12th weekend, doesn't it? No,
Aye.
it's July in Ireland. So,
Yeah.
but it was the only month I had to do with work and stuff. But yeah, the challenge thing, setting myself personal challenges kind of started. Well, I suppose the bodybuilding maybe was the first one, and then 5 years ago I climbed Sleep Donner 30 days in a row. And then after that, I did the County High Point Challenge. So that was my first experience of climbing Carrauntoohil, because you had to go around every county in Ireland and climb the hardest peak. And on that day, I had a really beautiful day. And then I returned 2 years later with my nephew. He wanted to climb it, so I brought him up it. And again, that day was a really beautiful day. So I just thought the sun always shined in Kerry, you know, or always shone in Kerry. So yeah, down I went, and it didn't. Like, it rained for about 20 days out of the 30. And yeah, it was grand. You know what? I try not to overthink these challenges and just literally get up every day. With the likes of Carrauntoohil, that's all I had to do that day, was to climb a mountain. You know, I still kind of have my laptop and a wee bit of admin to do in the background, but everything was sorted at home. I didn't have to think about the dogs. I didn't really have to think about the studio. We'd only started back on the 10th of July, and I had everything in place, ready to rock there. So all I had to do that day was to climb a mountain, regardless of the weather. And then doing it for charity kind of holds me accountable as well. So that's kind of the reason why I always attach a charity to these challenges too, because there was many a day, like, I got up, and especially after the weekend, because I had friends and family down the weekend to come and join me, and we're kind of had to entertain them. Maybe it was a few drinks on the Saturday, Sunday night, getting up the next morning, having to climb the mountain in the rain with a hangover. It was not easy, but it was for charity and it had to be done. and
I
that was
just
my only
I
focus
love
for
the
the
way you
day.
put it. All I had to do for that day was just climb a mountain. I didn't have anything else to do, just climb a mountain. You're like, yeah, that's not a normal day for most people. Every day up a mountain. Uh,
Yeah, I don't do anything for the rest of the year, I do these half challenges. Don't do anything for the rest of the year. I literally come home and I sat on the sofa from Sunday to Wednesday. So I did. I didn't
well, I would
move.
say it was well earned. Your
It was well earned, yeah. But yeah, that was the Carrauntoohil challenge. I think that's me though. I planned on not doing anything this year because it was my 40th. I was supposed to go on lots of holidays. But like that, when COVID happened and they restricted us from doing anything, restricted us from traveling, we couldn't even, drive to walk up the mountain, I think. And the weather was beautiful throughout lockdown. And I think when they let us go, that's where that notion came from. So
but your mind frame is different from the norm mind frame. Like for lockdown, a lot of people that I noticed just around social media and stuff sort of shut down, and they panicked a bit that their normal routine and their normal life was being thrown in disarray, and then did nothing. Just sort of waited, like they're still, some of them are still waiting now, hoping everything goes back to normal. Whereas your brain kicked in and went, well, let's do something. Let's climb a mountain for 30 days or do something. So do you think you instill that in your students? Do you think your students, when they get around you and just be around that sort of challenging, positive mindset, do you think that they feed off that and start to make challenges for themselves? It doesn't have to be mountains. It could be wearing heels to class, whereas they never would have in the past, or shorter shorts or whatever.
yeah, I like to think that I do, and that's probably part of the reason why I do these challenges as well, because you are kind of a role model to all these, students that are coming to your classes and that. So yeah, and I do know for a fact that I have inspired people in some ways. Especially when I was down in Carrauntoohil, there was a lot of people who down and joined me. They wanted to climb Ireland's highest mountain as well. So yeah, but that comes with their own confidence too, and building on themselves as well. And I've watched girls, over the years grow confidence and taking part in showcases and like competition and that as well. So yeah, I like to think that I inspire people in some way, whatever it is.
How have you dealt with? I assume there's been a lot of it with the negative connotations of what you do in Ireland. So, like when you mention pole and people go, that
Is that still is that still a topic? Is it still an issue? God,
is
it
it?
is
That's what I,
something. At the start, I used to be really defensive and go, oh, no, Hollywood has been stripped of its sleazy image and it's this and this and this and that. But, I'm so over it now. It's, 15 years in mainstream. It is what it is. It can be sleazy, it can be sexy, it can be artistic, it can be, athletic. Everybody has their own style, everybody brings their own style. There's people who are into all sorts, whatever turns them on. If you're looking at somebody being athletic on a pole, turns you on and you think it's sleazy or whatever, well then that's just your sort of perverted mind,
yeah.
Each to their own, each to their own. It is what
I
it
don't.
is.
I don't think anyone's watched me in a pool and thought that's very sleazy what that guy's doing. Sexy maybe, not just. I don't think I've mastered sleazy on the pole yet. But I just know from whenever I started, people were like, what? You're a pole dancer? I'm like, fuck, I don't know if I'm a pole dancer. I definitely am a pole trier. Like, I don't know. I remember saying it at the Worlds, like after watching the first few people perform. Remember saying to the audience, I lied. I said I was a pole dancer, but I definitely was not doing any of this. I don't know what I was doing, but some of the stuff that what's happening in the sport now is just incredible. Like what some of them people were doing at that competition, like I couldn't even do it lying on the floor, and they were doing it like way up a pole.
Well,
What's
that's why That's why I went from competing to judging. So there's no way I can do half that stuff, Yeah, it's just incredible what they can do in the pole. And a lot of people are coming from gymnastics and bringing it from the vertical bar, onto the horizontal bar. So, or the other way about. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yes,
Have
mad
you
stuff
enjoyed
they can
that?
do.
Have you enjoyed that transition where it's went from like now we've always said like anybody could do pole and everyone should try it and give it a go, but now like anybody you could meet, you could probably pick someone to go, oh, your style would be like theirs, or if that's the thing that you're into, this is the type of stuff that you do. What's it been like to see from the complete inside, from the start of Ireland having zero, like where you had to travel away to do it, till like everywhere in the world has pole now? What has that been like for you to see your sport grow?
Yeah, it feels really amazing and sort of like not like that I've accomplished something because it's not me that's doing all this crazy stuff on the pole, but I do feel quite proud that how far it has come and that I was able to be the first to bring it to Ireland and to share this passion and the feeling how it made me feel that first class to share that with other people. So yeah, it's been a great thing to witness indeed. And like you say, everybody has their own style. We even have our own instructors here at the studio that are all very different too. And it's great that we can offer, those different styles as well. And age group too. I was 25 when I started. I'm 40 now. And I've got a couple of instructors who are over 40. We've got quite a few over 50 students, and just
That's brilliant.
seeing that age range, and watching people, who have started with me from day one, go off, have babies, come back as well is
Yeah, that's brilliant.
you know.
Again, that just stands to you the fact that people would go away and have their kids and live their life for a while and then still go. They know they can just come back to L and do pole. It's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Like I know people at different sports and stuff that would come back and their instructors would have been saying to them like, where were you? Or now you're coming crawling back and you're like, what are you
Oh
like?
no, the door is
Yeah,
always open to the polar
yeah.
side.
And there's so much to do. I was trying to think. The last time I was up, I think was a contortionist workshop that I didn't know what a contortionist was. Remember, it was like a girl called Debbie.
I think that was Deb Riley, was it?
Yes,
Like,
and
remember?
I landed and I think it was you and Joe. I think it was you that told me about it, and then
My back hurts even thinking about that. Contortion class.
I listened to her warm up and then went over to you and was like, "Hell, what the fuck am I doing here? I can't even touch my toes. What is that?" I never even thought to Google contortionist. It's just like must have something to do with pole, bit of stretching. Someone, I think you just told me it was a bit of stretching. And landed and the girl has a picture of her inside a box going, "This is part of my act." I'm like, I probably couldn't bend over and lift the
I
box.
back and watch that day, like I do a lot.
That like again that for me, you meet like I love meeting people who just do anything outside of the norm. So like I'm always talking about superheroes. I love superheroes. And I was asked recently on a podcast what I think makes a superhero, and I was like, it's just someone that does more than the normal average person. So you're a superhero, I'm a superhero. Most people I try to surround myself with are people that do like our normal is other people's ridiculous. Like people go, "What did you do today?" And you tell them, and they go, "That's mad." Like even
like some of my friends, like one's training to be a pilot, the other one's a female firefighter. They're all just like all the women that I surround myself with are just amazing.
yeah.
You know.
Do you think that comes from being in this sort of industry and you start to notice that the people that like I know I've cut off a lot of people over the years that are still doing exactly what they were doing when I started, and I have went way beyond where I even thought I would get. Do you think that's important in your life to evaluate your surroundings, the people, the relationships, friends, everything?
Yeah, I think definitely negativity is a big thing that you have to learn how to cut out, learn how to recognize it first, you know, in people, in situations, you know, negative vibes, even your own thoughts too, and just to cut those out as soon as possible. And the quicker you do that, then the easier and happier your life is. You know, I find that I'm a real sort of a empathetic person, and in the past I would have made a lot of excuses for people, and also like would have held on to bad situations maybe in the hope that they would get better, you know, avoiding confrontation in the hope that things would just maybe get better or go away, and you know that never really happened. So
Yeah.
I think what I have learned over the years is to just try and recognize those situations and cut them out as quick as you can, and just surround yourself with positive people and positive things and nice things, and you know, go outside, be in nature, buy yourself a nice bunch of flowers, you know, surround yourself with happy people. People are always like supporting you and cheering you on, and that's what we have here at Polercise. We get a bunch of both girls and boys now too. So yeah, that's what I have learned. Definitely the older I get, the better I am getting at that. You know?
Yeah, I noticed that's a trait with all the people that I interact with and spend the most of my time with. That's one of the biggest traits that I notice, is that they've developed a comfortability with losing what's not for them. So instead of holding on to a job that they hate because it's a job and it's good money and it's safe, they're like, I'll just get another job somewhere. And I've got rid of clients just by saying to them, we're not a good fit, and they'd be paying decent money, and most people would go, would you not just keep them anyway because of what they pay? And you're like, not if it's they can't pay enough for me to bring negativity every so often when that cup just appears in shot. If you didn't tell me what that cup that you're drinking out of was, I wouldn't even notice it, but every so often it just appears in shot. Everyone's going to be going back.
Purchase one of these cups. Go to www.
Nora would tell me, what would you like the listeners to go to and find? And they're like, websites, and you're like, just buy one of these cups. People are going to be pausing it to work out what the cup's about, and the people that are just listening are now going to...
Our limited edition cup, they're no longer, you can no longer get your hands on this cup.
Even that's one of the things I think why we connected so well. You do not take yourself for like a businesswoman that had so many businesses and has been in this a long time, really successful. You don't take yourself seriously. There's no ego here. There's no like yeah, even the thought of trying to take yourself seriously, I bet if I asked you, if I was like, we need you to be serious, you'd be like, I don't know how to...
I have to practice being serious, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, practice.
That's when you turn into Eleanor, and you're like, a serious time, right? I'm Eleanor now. Get it going. Do you think that just taking yourself less serious, is that something that you developed through your work or as you got older, or has it been something that's always been with you?
Oh, I think I've always been like that, you know. I can't really remember enough of what I was like as a kid. And I'd love to go back and ask the people I used to hang about with in school, you know, what was I like? Was I a wee bitch like her? You know, was I dead on, or was I met or whatever? But no, I think I've always been like this. Yeah, and I think maybe because I would say my emotional intelligence is a lot greater than my intellectual intelligence. So I think maybe that's because, you know, I think I'm not really academic, and you know that I think sort of serious maybe comes to that side. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah.
I think that would be a great Instagram story for you to put out a question asking, who knew me when I was a kid and what was I actually like?
Well, that's a good idea. That's how I could do that. We were going to have a school reunion this year, and I planned on doing it then, but yeah, I might do it through Instagram. That's a good one. Yeah.
The responses could be quite interesting. Might have to do one myself. I remember what I was like. I was a wee fucker. I had anger management issues and was just hated school. So I imagine.
Like it either.
Nah, but again, we were I know I was told I wouldn't make it anywhere without like buckling down or pulling my socks up at school, but you were probably told the same sort of thing. And look at like what you've managed to achieve off the back of that. So
yeah.
it sort of keeps
But
going back.
education is important, you know, but it isn't the be all and end all. I mean, I remember failing it was 11 plus at the time, and then I think I only got like 6 Ds in my GCSEs, but then I went on to get a distinction in my GMQ, and I got a first in my degree, but I did have to work hard, you know, and that realization that I did have to work harder than others, you know, to get the results. Whether I liked it or not, and I didn't like it because many a night I would have seen myself stuck in the library over in UCLan while all my friends were partying in the union next door. Like, what university has a students' union right next door to the library? Like, it's just pure torture. So, but yeah, I did that, and I didn't really enjoy it, but I ended up getting the result. And then whenever I find pole, this is something that there was physical, which I was always into sport, loved PE, that was me. And yeah, so as I said, education is important. You know, you need to have a wee bit of something there to maybe run a business. I don't know, but yeah.
I think you can learn enough after school. Like I did no studying. I didn't even read a book when I was at school. Like I think the first book I read was George's Marvelous Medicine when I was like 16. And my nieces like read that when she was about 6. So like I was, and I have my book beside me. I wrote my own book that I'm bringing up because the picture, this picture for the front cover, I had to change the front cover because it wasn't, people kept questioning me about fighting, but this is from the World Pole. Remember, you asked me to cover 5 minutes, so I did Tai Chi, and the guy took a nice photo. So I got a
cover of the book. Okay.
The original cover had me like posing like a fighter.
Yes, I remember that one. Yeah, yeah.
So, but people kept asking me how much of the book was about fighting. And I was like, none. Why do you keep asking? And then I realized I was like, oh, I love the cover, but it doesn't serve the purpose of people looking at that book and going, it's all about fighting. Then and I'm like, you. And I'd be like, I just talked for an hour about anxiety. Why the fuck would I try to sell you a book about fighting? It makes no sense. So I think that, like you said, like school is very important, but I try to get across in all of my talks, like you just said, it's not the be end and end all of. You can come out of there and do like incredible things off the back of that. So I've actually been hired back. The school that told me I would never be allowed back in it have hired me back to teach to do talks, and to work with the 6th and 7th year. So, like, really, you can turn all of it around once you find something that you're passionate about. Yeah. Which leads me to a question that I wanted to ask: has there anything that has ever been like an apparent failure where you thought this is the worst thing ever, but it actually turned out to be great in the end up?
No, I don't think so. As I said, I was thinking about failures, academic failures, relationship failures, you know, none of them are really that significant. I feel, do you know what I mean? So I don't remember me failing really badly in anything bar P6 spelling test. Which, yeah, I remember we used to have a spelling test every Friday at P6, and I used to always sit beside a girl called Jane, and I would have copied her. And it would have been 10 out of 10 every week. And then one week Jane got sick. So the fear set in, the fear and panic Jane hadn't turned off. But it was all right because I had my cousin there who sat across the desk from me and she was going to help me. So the teacher, she would have given you clues as to the word that she wanted you to spell. So my cousin was like mouthing the wrong word to me, the little bitch. So I not only was spelling it wrong, I got the word completely wrong as well. So I ended up getting like 2 out of 10, and the teacher couldn't understand. Like, what happened to you? Like, I think it's pretty obvious, Jane wasn't in, you know.
Just having a really off day. It's weird that you have a spelling. I have a spelling story as well. I used to come in early from break and go into my teacher's desk and write down the words. And then when he told us to spell them, I would mimic my writing because he always read them out in the same order. But eventually he must have found out, he probably just knew because I was stupid, but somehow I could spell immaculately. So he called the words out in a different order. And I didn't obviously pay any attention or know. I was just mimicking, right? Yeah, it was jolly good. So obviously it was outed that I was actually a terrible speller. They actually tried to send me to special class after that because I was one of them kids. Then they were like, I think he needs to go to special class.
No. Although my mum was a special needs teacher, but obviously never paid any attention to my needs. Anyway, we'll not get into that. That's a whole other counselling session.
So, whenever you have new students arrive to your class, do you think you're quite good at picking up how they need to be spoke to, how they need to be directed and taught to get the best out of them?
Do you think we are good at picking that up as instructors?
Do you think you are? No, you personally, from your experience and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, you need to be pretty approachable. I think anyway, 15 years experience now, you kind of know what to look out for. Who the quiet ones are, not put them in the spot. Like schools as well. The teachers and things sort of need to be aware of that. And yeah, you need to be just open and approachable. And yeah, I think I'm quite good at identifying and addressing that, as all of my instructors are. And I think that's why I find it very hard to find a pole instructor, because not only do you need to have those kind of characteristics, but you need to be kind of good at pole too and be able to teach. Yeah.
I think people overlook that whenever you go to teach anything, like even as a martial arts instructor, when people say to me, I want to be a better martial arts instructor, how many hours should I train? And I'd be like, you need to learn about people. You have to be good at what you're doing, but you have to be able to converse with people and transfer that skill. And like, you have to baby them, you have to mother them, you have to like counsel them, give them some therapy. Like, there's a lot to it. It's not just a case of, come in, there's a pole, I'll show you a move and you can swing around it and then we'll move from there. Like, there's a lot goes on.
The disabilities are different and you have to be able to adapt, maybe your class structure on the spot and things like that,
Yeah. I used to, when I was teaching full time, I would have my class minute by minute prepped, and then every class that was ended, I'd be like, right, I got 7 minutes into that class before I had to change everything that I did. And
doesn't work.
No, but I always thought it was good to have it as a backup, but like you never end up going in that full direction.
No. We've seen some of our pole classes just turn into photo shoots, so people just want to get a photograph of them in a move, and they've gone from the pole onto the wall and
I must have missed those classes.
That's gone completely out the window.
But even at that, like, if you looked at it from just one-dimensionally, you'd be thinking all they did was take a few photos. But the fact that someone that was probably with you a month ago that would never have even wanted to be in front of a camera is now like full-on voguing it. I couldn't think of a pose that I was like, I'll just do a vogue. But full-on like take a picture.
And not only that, but in their hot pants and their belly top too. It's great.
See, I need to get a pair of hot pants. That's what I'm missing.
And heels. And heels. As soon as you get those heels on, the heels just you're like Cinderella once you get those heels on.
The problem with the heels is that whenever you say heels, for anyone that's never seen pole, will just assume, like the heels that my mum wears or my sister wears or the average person wears. But the stuff that you have are mental. Like they're like spikes bigger than my head. Like I have swords around me. And
you need to come stabilizer some of them, don't they?
Yeah. Like my feet are quite big, so I've never got to try anyone's, but I've watched people buy them, like put them on for the first time. And you're like, this is what Bambi must have felt like. I just trying to waddle through. And then again, you see them about a week or so later wearing the same shoes upside down, swinging around and like running about the pole, and you're like, what? I'm pulling on my bare feet for safety, and you're upside down with like spikes bigger than my head. So I think
it's perfect. You know, whenever COVID came in, we had to put a new implement, you know, cleaning and hygiene methods, and one of them was we had to take our shoes off at the door before entering the studios. But you're allowed to wear your pole heels in the studio, just not your trainers.
Is that in the law? I can just imagine Boris saying it. No shoes, but you can all wear pole heels. That's fine. That's my Boris. I don't listen to him, so it's my vibe of Boris. But I think you need to come up with a different name than heels, because they're not heels. Like they're their own entity. Like they're ridiculous. Stealth. They are like where.
God used to make me stealth when I was younger, so I think that was good training for me as well. I was always, you know, I was being molded to be a pole dancer from a young age.
Stealth. I never made those. I've never made those connections before, that stealth walkers would make good pole dancers. That's a new market that you could just start to target. Can you stealth walk? Well, then you could probably do this. One of the things that I've been asking a few ones is, whenever you feel overwhelmed or unfocused in general, what do you do? Like, do you have other outlets other than pole? Or like, I know you go to nature a lot, like myself. So for the people watching, what's your like go-to to get you away from overwhelm or to refocus you?
Definitely the great outdoors. You know, it has to be fresh air, regulate serotonin levels, you know, and that promotes happiness and well-being.
Yeah.
You want to get loads of that. And then even the physicality of the activity you're doing. So like whether it's mountain walking, which I do a lot, I do love to get into the forest as well, cycling, you know, people are into cold water swimming and all now. You know, whatever that is you do, it produces endorphins in the brain, and that is a great release, and it helps clear the head. And I think just being in nature, you know, just the beauty of nature itself helps our creative flow. It gives us that opportunity just to step away from electronics, you know, checking your emails, whatever crap is in there you have to deal with, social media as well. We tend to get sort of drawn into other people's lives a little bit too much on social media. So definitely my outlet is getting out in the outdoors. And I think that's probably why I'm so chilled as well, because I spend so much time walking the mountains, you know. So yeah, that's definitely my go-to really.
That's my one, and it's the one I always suggest that people just go out and actively be aware of where you are. So don't just go out and just mill about. Like, go out and look at things and look at the rivers and the trees and the mountains and whatever, and just be there. And then, like, one of the things I do a morning mobility routine outside of my garden every day, and a few of my clients have asked me to record it and post it, so I do that every so often. But whenever they ask me what's the hardest bit of my mobility routine, it's remembering to take my phone and record it, because I just go out and I do it and I come back and I'm like, fuck, I didn't record again. I didn't do it. Like, it might take me about a week to get one record. Same as when I go out to nature, I just throw the phone in the car and I'll go and do my walk. And if I see something nice that I want to post about, I'll do my walk and chill out, and then I'll come back and get my phone and go back. So it's like,
I should probably do that. I am guilty of taking my phone with me. You know,
but you go far though. I'm talking about walking around the glen, so it's like in any direction. As the crow flies, I can walk 10 minutes and back to my car.
Right, okay.
I wouldn't do that if I was up a mountain. But like, I'm gonna come back for that. I'm like, fuck it, I'll be back some other day. That'll do. No, so yours is different because you're actually like going. You're going to places where people, like where I go, anyone can go and anyone's capable of going, but like some of the places you're going, like up a mountain, not everybody's capable, so they're seeing shit that they would not see in real life, whereas mine's like a more lazy version of, I just like I could go out, like if I go to the beach, I'll go and walk and bury my feet in the sand and then just stand there. And people are like, do you want to go for a walk a mile up and down the beach? I'm like, no, I don't. I want to be on the beach. I don't need to walk up it. So I'll just stand buried here and you can...
Yeah, I tend to do that, practice what you do on a Sunday morning when I'm hungover. You know, my go-to place is Tullymore Forest Park and just, you know, hug the tree because I've got no one else to hug me. When I'm hungover, I tend to do that a lot more. Yeah.
There's stories all over Tullymore of the crying lady hugging the trees on a Sunday morning. Nobody speaks to her, but she's always there.
Poor dogs, what they have to listen to.
You always have dogs running about too now. I think when you've two dogs,
Yeah,
that are always...
two dogs and a cat.
But the cat doesn't go on walks, does it? That would be interesting.
Yeah, the cat doesn't go on a walk. No, although he has tried to come with us a few times on occasion, but yeah.
I think if you start taking the cat for the walk, you're going to become a cat lady. That's going to, like, one day it'll be one, and then we'll see a picture of you and 40 cats. You're like, I just found them. And one on the lead.
Talking of that, you know, in the moment, I think most recently the one thing I did, I have a 40 before 40 list going on, and one of the things I did for Ed was a pottery class, and I have never felt so in the moment in like years, probably since like I was a kid playing with Lego, you know.
Cool.
Just doing a pottery class, it was amazing for that. So I would definitely recommend that to anyone.
Was it anything like Ghost or whatever that movie it is? Ghost, isn't it that movie? Like, was it as romantic as that?
It wasn't, no. Maybe if my instructor, not there. No, I didn't have my ghost moment.
You could have just sung it yourself, because it was a ghost, so you could have did it yourself.
I know.
What did you make?
Ghosts here at the studio as well. I was minded by a ghost one time. We'll not go into that story.
Do they help you if you go to fall? Do they like catch you and like lower you down gently to the floor? What did you make in the pottery class? I'm curious now. What did you like? Did you make a bowl or what?
What did I make? I made a couple of wee pots, and I made some figurines of ladies in pole poses. So there was one doing a cat stretch, and there was one on all fours, and there was one lying on her back with her legs in the air.
Are you sure there wasn't a mention of pole? Doesn't sound like... I made pole people.
But I would prefer to say they were pole poses.
A question that I like to ask people just for my own curiosity is, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, no, if I was standing with me competing in the Miss World competition, I would have to say to have world peace and, you know, cure all hunger, not have, you know, homelessness and all the rest of it, but I'm not in the world competition. But I do my own wee bit, you know, own wee bit of...
Yeah, you do a lot. Like you
do. And creating peace and all the rest of it. So I think if we all do that collectively, it'll be a much better world that we live in. But my superpower, I always kind of have a recurring dream that I'm flying. So, and I feel amazing in the dream, and I never ever want to wake up. So I'd love to fly, but I think telepathy with animals.
Cool.
That would have to be my part. So you know, can have conversations. So I know what my dogs are saying to me and my cats, and I love animals. I love animals. I far rather have them over children and babies and brats, which is why I don't have any. So yeah, telepathy with animals. So I could be the real, what's that movie I'm thinking of?
Dr. Dolittle?
Dr. Dolittle, yeah.
You could ask your dog why it humps everything.
Pardon?
You could be asking your wee dog why it humps everything.
Humps everything, yeah. You know the reasons of that, but anyway, she's in the dominator.
looking over your own bum as you said it.
Hey?
You were looking over your own bum as you said it. Elle, I gotta
Yeah, what
wrap
would
it up
yours
there.
be?
Eh?
What
What
would
would
yours be?
my superpower would be to be able to unlock everyone's potential. So for you to be able to just go, now your potential's unlocked. You can do and be whatever you want to be. I think that would make. Again, I just want to surround myself with people that are awesome. So it's what I do. But if I could make everybody around me a bit more awesome, then life would be
Love it.
brilliant. So that's. But if you ask me tomorrow, it could be I might get psyched out and be like, I just want to be Wolverine. Or like, who knows? I might want to be Superman one day.
You want to talk to goldfish?
Yeah, I want to know what's going on. Goldfish. Do you really only remember 15 seconds? That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it there. I love this chat and I don't want to keep you too long. Where would everyone find you? Where's the best place for people to reach out to you and connect with you?
Well, we have the Polercise website, which is polerciseni.com. I'm also on social media. So the Facebook page is L Polercise. My Instagram page is just L, and the Polercise Instagram page is Polerciseni as well. So there's lots of social media platforms there. I only really use Facebook and Insta. I haven't got on to Twitter. Never really caught on to that on Twitter crack. But yeah, that's where you can find me, or just Google Elle Peg and you'll come across me somewhere.
I'll put all the links below anyway, so people can just connect straight up to you. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you soon.
Yes, we'll be up to Jam.
We're jamming at the end of the month.
Yeah, I'll be there. Keep an eye on my Instagram story to see how amazing I am at pool. For everyone listening, thank you very much, and I will speak to you all again soon.